Here we have the depiction of this archetype. We call this archetype the mystic. It is in transit from January 11th to January 15th, more or less. We call it the gate of mystery in the I Ching. This is hexagram of inner truth. And in the gene keys, we have the frequency band that goes from the shadow of psychosis to the city of sanctity, and the human pathway is inspiration. Here we're looking at the 61 from an I Ching perspective. In the I Ching, we are dividing the sky into those 8 elemental trigrams. And we happen to have lake trigram on the bottom in those archetypes, where 61 is one of them. So lake trigram on the bottom. And then on the top, in this case, we're going to have wind. So gentle wind over joyous lake. When it comes to the elemental trigrams, we are going to see that we have the hexagrams that are combining 2 of the same. So when we have wind over wind, that is the same as hexagram 57. And when we have lake over lake, that is the same as hexagram 58. So in a gene key sense, we can make a braid of this and say that the 61 is made up of those 2 energies. So that the shadow of psychosis is the unease of dissatisfaction. The gift of inspiration is intuitive vitality. And the city of sanctity is the clarity of bliss. Here we're looking at the 61 from an astrological perspective. We are in the part of the wheel where we have Capricorn. Capricorn is cardinal earth. It's the trunk and the roots that provide organic structure and reach into the lineage of our ancestors. So it's the 3rd time in the wheel that we are in the earth element. The first time was fixed earth in Taurus, the 2nd time mutable earth in Virgo, and then this is the 3rd time. The 10th sign, and also connected to the 10th house in modern astrology, the archetype of Capricorn is the wise elder, the teacher, or our ancestors. It's service to others through the grounded intent to preserve the planet Earth. And we are in the quarter of mutation. We're going to see that in a little while as well. And we are in the very transpersonal part of astrological wheel. So here we have integration of self with society in this quarter here. The quarter of mutation, where the purpose is fulfilled through transformation, you're going to see that all these hexagrams have 2 yang lines on the bottom, and that's what makes up that quarter. Here we have the body graph. We have only 3 gates in the head center: the artist, the mystic, and the detective. This is the individual gate in the head center. The head center is a pressure center. It has to do with inspiration and sense making. And the shadow here is pressure. The gift is seeking, and the city is consciousness. Here we're looking at the whole process. So when we have hanging gates that are connecting to each other, we call those harmonic gates. So in this case, we have the 24 connecting with the 61 between the head and the ajna. This is the design of a thinker, and we call it the channel of awareness. It's projected. So long as you're not using your mind to resolve your own life, it is always capable of inspiring someone else to see life in a new light. You inspire others to think about life's mysteries. For the inventor, we have key notes as pausing, pondering, and revelation. For the mystic, the keywords are beyond Maya, occult knowledge, and mystery. And then we have a frequency band for the whole process. So in this case, when we have addiction and psychosis, that is blankness. When we have invention and inspiration, that is contemplation. And I like that because in the Gene Keys, we speak so much about contemplation, and sometimes it feels a bit boring almost. What's contemplation? Something you do with your mind. Yeah, but what is it? So if we can think that it's made up of invention and inspiration, to me at least, contemplation feels more alive. And then silence and sanctity, that is the mystery. So here we're looking at the other side of the wheel. So if we have the 61, like we said in Capricorn, then we're going to have on the other side the 62 in Cancer. So those are programming partners. If you have the 61 in your activation sequence, you're also going to have the 62. If you have the 61 in your nodes, you're also going to have the 62. So here we have psychosis hand in hand with intellect, inspiration hand in hand with precision, and sanctity hand in hand with impeccability. And we are in individual circuitry, like I mentioned, in the head center. So here we see the middle pillar in the chart and also the middle on the sides. That is individual circuitry. And here the keynote is empowerment. And we are in the knowing circuit here. It is about mutation, about pulse. And even in the 61, there can be this kind of melancholy that the world is never going to understand your knowing the mutation that's coming through you. So especially when we look at the 61.6, it can be this kind of resignment that it's not worth it to try to externalize, to try to share my truth because nobody's going to get it anyway. So it's not an emotion. Melancholy in this case, Royer, who speaks a lot about this, it's not an emotion. It is an existential quality. And if you have any of those gates, including the integration channels here in the centering circuit, it's about that quality of existential melancholy, we could say. You can see here too that the sense is hearing, so this kind of inner knowing, this voice that kind of comes through you. And it's interesting too that Roger, who spoke about the encounter with a voice, he didn't like see it visually. It was a voice that he heard in those days that he was in the transmission, and he had 61 in his, I think it was his radiance, so his inner sun or his design sun. So this is very much what his soul was shining, this inner truth that came through that encounter, whether that's the great mystery or the inner part. Okay, so here we are bringing in another system that is under discovery right now. So in the lost octave, the transmission of the star codons, the 61 is the star codon of Eve. And it's actually not part of another codon because it's a start codon in the maternal DNA. So the same way that in the normal DNA we have the 41, which actually is the start codon of Adam, that is the start codon, as we know, like the origin of everything. In the maternal DNA, we have the 61 as the start codon. And this is the first Eve. For me, the first Eve, the original Eve, she's actually a combination of Eve and of Lilith because she's the original. She's the first one. We can go back to Lemuria and retrieve the origins of our ancestors, going back to what we're speaking about, the cardinal earth. It's where it first started. And she's connecting us back to our origins, but she's also together with the star codon of Adam, together with the 41. They're also bridging over to the future and to the Aquarian age that we're walking into. So you can see here the zodiac that we are in Capricorn, and it's connected to the body. We have wind over lake, and this is endorphins in terms of the brain chemistry. And it's a transformation channel. So there is definitely transformation when we tap into this inner truth, when we tap back into our origins and our blueprint before anything was tainted. So this is the mother vine. So the Star of Eve is the portal to the first mitochondrial Eve over 300,000 years ago in the homelands of Mother Africa. She's the vine of Gaia that rhythmically flows through the very veins, animating all life in wild ecstasy. The first daughter of Gaia, she dawned the age of humanity upon our earth through her rouge, untamable beauty. She is the unbound anomaly conjunct the architectural perfection of Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn. To believe the mother vine could be ensnared to temptation is laughable at best, for she's the garden, she's Eden. So, yeah, there was no sin. There might have been an apple, but yeah, she knew what she was doing, and we can all come back to that empowered origin of our species and of our wisdom. So this is the transmission that comes from Rob Comber, and we are doing the star codons, which are 52 of them, and we can look at them in different dimensions, like 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, like all the dimensions, and they are also the same way the codon rings in the gene keys are connected to the amino acids. here we also have that connection, and that's the same as the Godhead and human design. So it's all different ways of translating the same transmission, the amino acids that are connected to our DNA. So that's why human design is that science of evolution, why the gene keys are unlocking the genius in our DNA. And then the star codons are a new way of working with it that I feel is super powerful. So we're still allowing people to come in. We started a month ago with 2 weeks of not doing anything over Christmas and New Year's. So contact me if you still want to come in. There's also 10% off for people that are connected to Unlock Your Design for the yearly course. And there is a possibility to pay per month as well. So now we go to another system, and this is a Baxis 3D, and this is in Spanish, but we'll look at it together. So this is another depiction of the 61. So here we speak about this internal truth, and this is the little guy who's sitting, connecting to his heart, connecting to his body, connecting to the kind of aura of Earth. And the verb that is given here for the 61 is to recognize. Right? If there is that inner truth, we can see here in the hexagram, we have this little window into the center, into the heart, into the inner truth. So recognizing is the verb. It tells us it's recognizing in order to be honest with ourselves, because inner truth is not going to lie, right? The great mystery is connecting with us, and it's connected to God, or kind of the intelligence of everything. And then this is connected to the hidden trigram. So if this is what we have seen before, the 2 trigrams that we've spoken about, which is the wind trigram over the lake trigram, if we look at the hidden trigrams within, we're not looking at the top and the bottom. We're looking at this trigram here, and we're looking at this trigram here, the 3 lines. So that's mountain and thunder. And thunder is something very changeable. And mountain is connected in this system to Libra, and it's the perfect balance, the seeing, the understanding. So when we have those two, the changing and then the way of seeing, it's actually to change the lens. So here, looking at the 61 in this way, it is to recognize the truth in order that you can be honest with yourself. And then the recommendation is to change the lens, because we can get stuck on things that are not necessarily our inner truth, and then that connected to gate 62, that intellect, and then we're stuck and we're here in the head center, and there is so much doubt and so much confusion and so much psychosis, right? So be stuck is often a psychosis that goes round and round, taking it back to the shadow and the gene keys. And then if we change the lens, then everything can open up, and that lens is coming back to the heart as well. And the last thing I'm going to say is that in this system, like I said, we have the elements of the I Ching that are connected to the astrological signs. So looking at the colors here and looking at those signs, or and houses, because there are 12 signs and 12 houses, the 2 signs that are connected here are Virgo and Taurus. You can also see Venus and Mercury that are actually the rulers of those 2 signs. So the 61 having that combination energy. So yeah, so many ways of seeing it, so many perspectives. And with that, I think we're done with the presentation for today. So maybe let's take a quick look at the transits. There was a full moon not even 24 hours ago, so we're still in the full moon energy. We are now in the 5th line. We still have the connection between Saturn and Neptune, having this channel of transistoriness. So it was definitely, for many of us, an emotional moon, with the moon in the 62. So we had the moon yesterday together with the Earth opposite the Sun, and basically also opposite Pluto, and also together with Mars. So a very powerful opposition, Cancer, Capricorn, and the moon in Cancer. It's over emotional, and then the channel of transistoriness. So yeah, if it felt lunatic, if it felt emotional, that's normal. Bask in this energy for a while, and there could also be something, because the full moon is the culmination of something. What is the emotional pattern that you're done repeating? And I realized that I'm shedding, and I Don't know how it's connected exactly to the moon, but I do have the 61 in my design South Node, and it's also my SQ, my design Venus. So this opposition was, of course, also on top of my SQ and my design South Node. And I feel that for me is connected to my purpose sphere, my design Earth, the 7.6, where the repressive side of the shadow, I believe, is permissiveness. So I was feeling how I was shedding some of the layers of not knowing, kind of not liking boundaries and thinking that boundaries is just for hard, rigid people that can't feel life fully. And I have the two, the second gene key in my life's work, and I want to feel life fully. And I don't have the 48, but I love that feminine sense of feeling life fully, whether it's ecstatic bliss or excruciating pain. And I also think that the 46, that's the ability to feel fully. And for me, there was a conflict between feeling fully and having boundaries. That they didn't go together. And at the same time, when you don't have boundaries, the permissiveness of what you accept can be anything and everything. And I feel that I'm going back in time to when I was 19, 20, 22, 23, the imprinting and the kind of revelations of possibly even previous lives are coming up. And I wrote actually the updates on Facebook. It's just one sentence because it speaks to the whole thing that I felt. So I said, today I'm shedding and integrating all layers of permissiveness, including the belief that I'm more safe if I'm close to and can track the danger. And that's something that I'm learning to let go of, because it actually has you stay with the danger and getting married to the danger if you need to know. There's this inner conflict. And I think it's so many of us that maybe grew up with parents that were alcoholic. That was not my case, but parents that were alcoholic or some kind of violation, molestation as well that was there. And if you can track the person, the danger, and know if they are drunk or know if it seems like they're going to come when you maybe least expect it, but if you at least stay awake and look out for it, you have that false belief of being more safe. But that is also engaging with it, and anything we engage with, it keeps being there. So I'm learning to see what are boundaries. How can boundaries maybe not be, Katerina was saying that last time as well, like how can a boundary not be a thick wall, but more be a membrane where things can come in and out, and we can have that kind of discernment of what comes in and out. So I feel I'm learning to actually say no, and to, even in the outer world, set a boundary to things or a stop to things that are actually really destructive. And I realized that these are, again, layers. It's something that we can understand with the mind, but what is it to actually embody it? What is it to actually be not only decisive, but consistent in that choice? Because I feel myself not being I'm fixed as a 4-6, but I feel myself not being a person that it's almost like there's always a way back, but sometimes there should maybe not be a way back. So that's my own process. It's hard to put words on. So I'm curious to see, for those that are here today, and this emotional energy and transistoriness and the culmination maybe of emotional patterns, like in my case, that come up to the surface, and we can do something different. And I don't think I have an undefined ajna and head. I don't think it is necessarily about being so sure, but it's about daring to look inwards and be like, oh my God, this is a pattern I have. I want to track the danger, but then it never goes away.